Hi and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are here to celebrate the fact that I reached my Goodreads goal. Yes, I did. It was 400 books. And as of today, I completed my 400th book, and I'm actually even reading book number 401 for 2022. Now, at the end of December, when I set my Goodreads goal, which is goodreads.com, under Reading Challenge, you can set your yearly goal. Well, my yearly goal was 600. I had an experience, however, at the end of the first month of the year, at the end of January, that nixed that goal, so therefore I lowered it to 400. Well, now that it is September 3rd, I can think about raising that goal back to 600 again. But we'll see. I have to think about it overnight. So, without any further ado, let's do a slideshow of the books that I read, and we'll just do that. And I'm gonna do it for myself, and then when I edit this video, I'll include that slideshow. So as you can see, there's going to be a lot of Harlequin books that come in here. And these Harlequin books is because I signed up for a lot of Harlequin blog tours at the beginning of the year. I also read a nice little throwback to Agatha Christie, Death on the Nile, so I could see the movie, which I haven't seen yet. And then, let's see, the 5-day reunion, but let's see what stood out. Oh, Betty White's If You Ask Me, and of course you won't. I also read Katie Couric's book, Going There. You're going to see that come up. And you're also going to see Ryan Shazier's book come up, and that book is called Walking Miracle. In addition to that, we're going to talk briefly about my favorite book of the year, which was The Dust Bowl Orphans by Suzette D. Harrison. Or not the year, of the month, I'm sorry, of the month, The Dust Bowl Orphans. Oh, a few James Patterson books, Hawk and City of the Dead, and also Fear No Evil. So I'm getting back into my James Patterson books. And I read some psychological thrillers, which were My Darling Husband by Kimberly Bell, The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, which was a reread, and also The Ex-Husband by Karen Hamilton. I did read a couple of Jenna Ivanovich's Stephanie Plum series. Actually, I read 4, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And, another psychological thriller I didn't mention was The Overnight Guest by Heather Gudenkoff. And, one more, Women Last Seen by Adele Parks. So I got some great psychological thrillers in there, and ended with a psychological thriller, was The Night She Went Missing by Kristen Bird. So January was a great month, a great way to jump into the new year and to start on that goal, which at this point was still at 400. So I'm going to stop here for a minute, gather my notes, my images, because I'm working without notes. That's just the way it goes. But let me gather my images for my February reads. Okay, I gathered my images for my February reads, which I'm going to do in slideshow format for you right now. And as I scroll through these videos, you're going to see these books, you're going to see that I read 51 books in January, but only 21 or so books in February. Question is, why did I drop back? Well, I dropped back because I had a very bad social media experience at the end of January. And due to that experience, I lost my way. And I just didn't even want to go on. I even ended up in the hospital. So it was very hard to get through February. But prior to what happened to me, I had signed up for my blog tours for the month of February. So every day I worked at achieving or reading and reviewing those books for those blog tours. I'm glad to say that despite the emotional breakdown I had at the end of January, I did not miss any blog tours. In fact, I even got in a couple of Jenna Ivanovich's books, 13 and 14. So February was a low month for me, but it worked out, and I'm glad that it did. Okay, so we jump into the month of March. And again, I will show you a slideshow for all of the books I read in March. Now, January was great. February, not so much. By March, I was coming out of that fugue state of depression and being completely forlorn and giving up, and I started reading more. So I almost doubled what I read in February, and that was really good. Now, I even actually made videos on this channel which were therapeutic, which helped me to get through the feelings and the emotions that I experienced. So, as we look at these books that I'm showing you in a slideshow, the first thing I want to mention off the top is I did get to an additional Janet Ivanovich book, which was Finger Lickin' 15. Also, I had a bunch of paperback, print, hardcover, and softcover advanced reader copies that I hadn't read up until the month of March. So I was able to get a lot of those read. They were Fighting for Space, Love People Use Things, Healthy Heart, Healthy Brain, Wildlife. I feel like there was one more. Oh yeah, Finding Freedom. So I got some nonfiction, even 30 Life Crisis in the Black Agenda, the Book of Moods, the Book of Hope. Yeah, March was a great month. Great month. Especially when you get to the Black Agenda. You learned a lot that we need to think about in this racial conscious world that we still live in. Finding Freedom was about a cook who experienced a lot and how she found her footing and set up her life. And then I liked the Book of Hope, which was by Jane Goodall, and how she showed how we can have hope in the world that we live in. Another good book that I mentioned was Love People Use Things by Ryan Nicodemus and Joshua Fields Milburn. And this book, they are minimalist, but this book was focusing on relationships, and I think it had 7 key points that we can look at in our lives so that we can love people and only use the things in our lives. I didn't tell you what my favorite book for February was, so let's do that really quickly. My February favorite was A Life for a Life by Carol Wire. And my March favorite singular was Love People Use Things by Ryan Nicodemus and Joshua Fields Milburn. So those were my favorites for those 2 months. I didn't mention that already. So I think that's all we're going to do. Take a look at the slideshow, tell me what you think, and if you see any books that kind of appeal to you. Okay, April, I got it. I got my groove back. I got my groove back. That is so important because I cannot allow what other people say, think, and do, and how they act to control my livelihood, my joy. And I got my joy back. I read 54 books in April. Yeah. From 21 to 36, back up to 54. That was my April. Good month. This month was pretty rich when it came to James Patterson. I read Instinct, Killer Instinct, and Steel. I think I'm just flipping through because I'm going to do the slideshows after I talk. I read My 7 Black Fathers by Will Jawando, nonfiction, excellent book. I read a true crime book, Unmasked by Paul Holes, and that was my life solving America's Cold Cases. That was pretty harrowing. I mentioned that I read some James Patterson books. Another James Patterson book that I read was Death of the Black Widow. Then, of course, I read my crime fiction and my psychological thrillers. Some of the crime fiction was 2 books by Stacey Green, which is A Girl in the Ground and The Trapped Ones. Some of the psychological fiction was Alison Brennan's The Wrong Victim. Widow Falls by Kirsten Marglin. Heather Graham's The Crimson Summer, but I think that might have been more women's fiction, but it was a good reading month. I read A Cozy Mystery in the Most Perilous, and that was by Genevieve Essig, and since then, I think I have read 2 more of her books because we're in the month of April, or at least 1 more. But another psychological thriller, The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Great, great, great reading month. I'm so glad that I got past my emotional drama. So that's all I'm going to say about April. Enjoy the slideshow. Okay, now we're moving on to May. Now, you think I did good in April? May was even better at 62 reads. Yes. 2 things happened in those months. First thing is my reading got better and better, back to where I feel good about it. Secondly is this channel shot up. I started off at that dramatic situation that occurred with me back around, we'll say 789 subscribers, and now I'm at like 1160 or 1162 or something. So not only was I reading more, but I started making individual book review videos for every video that just about every book I was reading. I was making book review videos. Sometimes they're series reviews or compilations or whatever, but I was on fire as far as getting out of that mental fugue and enjoying what I love most, which my favorite hobby is reading. Not only that, I didn't mention any of this so far, but I was cross-stitching like a loon, which I'm not doing right now. Right now, I am diamond painting, and that's what I have been engaging my energies in of late, small bones, but I'm still reading. Stolen Child. So back to Silence Before Dawn, My Husband's Secret, The Most Likely Club, and The Bletchley Girls. Right now, I can tell you that The Silence Before Dawn by Amanda Lees and The Bletchley Girls by Anna Stewart are favorites of mine. Both World War II historical fiction stories, and both featuring female protagonists, strong female protagonists who worked for the resistance to try to thwart Hitler and his minions during World War II. So I will just quickly show that slideshow and then summarize my 400 books read in a moment. Try to put a card. So I just wrote that down in case I'm able to do that. Now, this month of May was rich with blog tours. In fact, if I go to my spreadsheet, and I'm trying to do each month a wee bit different so that the video isn't like so super boring or whatever. So when we get to May, it was a rich month of blog tours. I think like 29 or 30 blog tours for a single month. Most of them were Bookature. By far, most of them were Bookature, but I had a couple of Berkeley books in there and some Harlequin. So Harlequin, Berkeley, and my biggest one would have been and was Bookature. So anyway, back to this. I also read some books that I want to read more of, which were the MC Beaton series. I only read the first 3, but for MC Beaton, let me tell you, if you have an Audible subscription, all but the very latest book in that 27 book series is available free with your Audible subscription. So when I have time, I will be reading that MC Beaton series. So aside from that, it looks like I read, some cozy mysteries from Bookature. I read a good book by Shalini Boland, The Girl from the Sea. She writes in excellent fashion. I read Victoria Jenkins' The Bridesmaid. Love her books. I read Carmel Harrington's A Mother's Heart. Her books are always gut punching, gut wrenching. They just make you think. Some Harlequin books I might have mentioned. I read 3 books, which I think Sherry J. Ryan, I'll write that down for 4 minutes and see if I'm trying to learn how to put cards in my videos. I read The Girl with the Diary, The Prison Child, and The Soldier's Letters by Sherry J. Ryan. What was unique about this trilogy is it was all the same story, but from a different perspective. Each book was from a different character's perspective, but it was all the same story. I love that concept. I also read The Song of Our Scars by what's his name? Hyder Wyrick. I haven't done a review on this, but it's called, the title is The Untold Story of Pain. So he really talks about how pain originates, how pain is treated. He even talked about how blacks are treated with chronic pain compared to how whites are treated with chronic pain. But that's not my experience, but that's what he says in his book. I did read another Kirsten Margolin book, which now I think that would make 6 Kirsten Margolin books I read in 2022 so far. And I read 2 middle grade books, Dinosaur Disaster and Caprice. So that's all I'll tell you about that. I'm going to go ahead and let you watch the slideshow, and hopefully you'll enjoy seeing the 62 books that I read. Okay, now we're going to talk about my June reads. Now, June was a slower reading month for me, and I was only able to get in 47 books. I'm hard on myself when that happens, but I know that I shouldn't be, but that's just a fact of the way my brain works. The harder I work, it seems the happier I am. But that's when I went into a depression, and if memory serves me correctly, I spent most of June in bed. So all I did was read, and as a matter of fact, I had so much writing to do by the middle towards the end of June, it wasn't funny. But anyway, let's talk about some of the highlights. We finished up the Angela Marston's Kim Stone series with the last 2 books, The Stolen Ones and 6 Graves. Glad to have finished that so that when book number 17 comes out, I'm ready for it. I read As Seen on TV. That was really good, by Meredith Shore. I loved it. I loved that one. And then I read 2 Julie Murphy book and a Jasmine Guillory book, which were part of the same series. One was If the Shoe Fits, and the other is By the Book. Anything else jump out? Oh yeah, Carola Lovering, Can't Look Away. That stood out to me. I read a couple of Ali Cross books by James Patterson. I think I may have mentioned that I'm reading more of him, and that was Ali Cross, the first one, and Ali Cross, Like Father, Like Son. I think it's Ali Cross. I'm sorry, Ali Cross. And then I read Corrections in Ink by Carrie Blackinger, and her experiences, what led her to end up in prison, and what she is doing now with her life, which is fabulous. And Writing Jane Crow wasn't quite what I thought it would be, but I don't even know why I'm mentioning it now. And I did read one more Ali Cross book, which was Ali Cross, The Secret Detective. So those are my highlights for June. And guess what? I forgot to tell you what a couple of my favorites were. For April, my favorite was Take My Hand by Dolene Perkins Valdez. My May favorites were 2 books, A Mother's Heart by Carmel Harrington and Unbridled Cowboy by Maisie Yates. I don't generally choose romances as my favorites, but that one it was. My June favorite was By Her Own Design by Piper Hughley. So that is my June. Okay, so now we're going to talk about July. July. And July, I jumped up from 47 books the previous month to 63 books. Now, I want to tell you that I got a book for James Patterson for review, and it looks like I did not read it until August. But in preparation for that book, I wanted to catch up on his Michael Bennett series. So in July, for that Michael Bennett series, I think I had read 4. So let me tell you what I read. Gone, Burn, Alert, Bullseye, The Chase, Haunted, Manhunt, Ambush, Blindside, and The Russian. Okay, and I did get the last one read in July. That was Shattered, and I believe Shattered was the review title. If not, I'll tell you when I get to my August reads. So I got a lot of James Patterson read. Now, one of the things that got me Shattered, or the last book in the Michael Bennett series for review, was the fact that I have now been privileged with joining the Hachette audiobook program in the Libro FM ALC, which is an advanced listener copy program. So now I'm getting some of the authors that I really love. And by so doing, I also got James Patterson by James Patterson, his memoir in his own narration. That was a highlight of the month. I want to just jump over to my notes to see what my favorite July. Oh, let me tell you, I also heard about Will Dean in his book called Firstborn, which I haven't listened to yet. I have it as an audiobook. But what I did get was The Last Thing to Burn by Will Dean. And I wanted to read that before I listened to Firstborn. Well, The Last Thing to Burn ended up being one of my favorite books in July. The other one that was a favorite was The Edge of Summer, and that was by Viola Shipman. And that led me to reading some other books by Viola Shipman, and I want to talk about that for a minute. I just want to see if I got them in. Bear with me one moment. Okay, yes. Viola Shipman wrote The Edge of Summer, which was a review title. I loved that book. So when I mentioned on this channel how much I love that book, somebody recommended another series of his, because Viola Shipman is the pseudonym for Wayne Chapman, I believe. Wayne Rouse. So I read the Hope Chest, the Charm Bracelet, and the Recipe Box. If you could say favorite after favorite after favorite, I could think of a lot, because I read Miss Aldridge Regrets by Louise Hare, Hidden Figures, The Book of Awesome Black Women, An Orphan Song by Lizzie Page. July was a fabulous reading month for me. I loved it. I was quite happy. I don't think I had a bad book that whole month. I read a shoe story. Oh, I mentioned that already. No, I didn't. A shoe story, which I believe was the third book. I talked about Jasmine Guillory in another. I'm drawing a blank on it. So a shoe story kind of followed that. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't want to mix up my books. I do remember a lot, but when you read a lot, it gets all jumbled up, and I just have to slow down enough to remember everything. Then I also read by Nadine Madison, The Binding Room. Now, this is the second after The Jigsaw Man by her that I read last year. So The Binding Room was my next book. I said I didn't get a bad book in July, but that's a lie, because I read The It Girl by Ruth Ware, which I only gave 3 stars to. I won't say it's a bad book. It just wasn't a good book as far as being one of my favorite Ruth Ware books. So that is my July. Enjoy the slideshow. Now we move on to August. Now, August was a surprising month for me. I was able to read 57 books. Why was August surprising? Well, number one is I went away on vacation to the White Mountains in New Hampshire, and that was for 7 days. And I babysit most Friday nights for Ariana and Mikey, and I also started helping my son Alan by babysitting his little girl, Lila. So with all that babysitting and a week out of town, I still got 57 books read. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, my favorite book, I had several. Let's put it like this. Until I got to the last book of August, my 2 favorite books were Love Lists and Fancy Ships by Sarah Gwenda Ruiz and My Name is Ona Judge by Suzette D. Harrison. But then we get to the last day of August and I start reading The Lucky One by Jessica Payne. And sadly, it pushed those other books out the way and took my spot for number 1 for August, The Lucky One by Jessica Payne. And that basically was about a woman when she was 18 or so, escaped a serial killer that killed her best friend, August. Years later, she's in the clutches of that serial killer again. Is she going to be as lucky as she was years? I think it was 5 to 8 years, but it was some years that had passed. Other books I read was Nobody's Princess by Erica Ridley. Remember I said Love Lists and Fancy Ships was one of my favorite books this month. Well, so was Luck and Last Resorts. Those are romances, but each of the primary characters, the female protagonists, each had serious issues, serious baggage, and I just loved those books. Then I read 2 books by Joanna Schaffhausen, Gone for Good and Long Gone. Those were really, really good. I also read Thought, which is an essay by Shantae L. Reid, which I've got to make a video on that. 63 pages, but 63 of the most impactful pages, pretty much, that I've read in a minute. So look for that video. Then I had The Secret of Bow Lane by Jennifer Ashley, which I believe is number 7 in the series. I had already read 1 through 5, but I never read number 6, which was Death at the Crystal Palace. So since I had The Secret of Bow Lane for a blog tour, I went ahead and read book 6 so that I could be caught up with the series. Now, I want to read, I'll tell you, I read Well Played and Well Matched by Jen DeLuca because I have another one of her books coming up in a week or so. So I read those two in preparation for the one that I have coming up. I read another Karen Rose book. I think it was 700 pages and it was 1:45. Excellent, excellent book. So that was my August. I'm very happy with it. 57 books considering I went away on vacation. I could tell you about so many other books. Why not tell you about one other series? The Arrangement series by Kirsten Moglin, which was the Arrangement, the Amendment, and the Atonement. And hands down, all 5-star books. Unbelievable. What can you imagine where the stuff comes from? So that was really good. So we're going to end that for August, and I will move on to my September. This is going to be the quickest slideshow because I've only read 7 books so far, because today is September 3rd. And they are going to show in slideshow format, but I'll tell you what they are. The Lost Ticket, 3 Small Bones, Our Stolen Child, The Silence Before Dawn, My Husband's Secret, The Most Likely Club, and The Bletchley Girls. Right now I can tell you that The Silence Before Dawn by Amanda Lees and The Bletchley Girls by Anna Stewart are favorites of mine. Both World War II historical fiction stories, and both featuring female protagonists, strong female protagonists who worked for the resistance to try to thwart Hitler and his minions during World War II. So I will just quickly show that slideshow and then summarize my 400 books read in a moment. Hi, I just took a few hours to edit that video that I made on the 3rd. Today is the 6th, so the last slideshow you saw showed a few more books than I said that I had read, which I believe was 403. Now it's up to 408 or 410, I'm not quite sure. In any event, I just wanted to call this video to a close. I've got on a different shirt because it's 3 days later. I couldn't get it edited the day that I made the video, and then I've just been very busy the last few days, but I did want to at least put in a conclusion. So thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.